Is the lost city of Atlantis just a myth, or could it be hiding in plain sight? Join us as we delve into the archaeological evidence and theories that suggest this legendary island civilization might have been a real place. Welcome to the Forgotten File. Have you ever stood by the ocean and wondered what secrets lie beneath the waves? Maybe you've imagined a lost city hidden somewhere in the deep, waiting to be discovered. For thousands of years, people all over the world have been fascinated by the legend of Atlantis, a city of wonder, wisdom, and wealth, swallowed by the sea in a single night. Our story begins over 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece. Plato, one of the world's most famous philosophers, is sitting with his students, sharing stories and ideas. In two of his writings, called Timaeus and Critias, Plato tells a tale that would echo through history. He describes a mighty island called Atlantis, larger than any land the Greeks knew, lying beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Plato's Atlantis was a marvel. Imagine a city built in perfect circles with sparkling canals and bridges. The people of Atlantis were clever and creative. They built grand palaces, decorated everything with gold and silver, and lived in harmony with nature. Their city was full of music, art, and laughter. It sounds like a paradise, doesn't it? But as Plato tells it, the people of Atlantis changed. They became greedy and proud, forgetting the values that made their city great. They wanted more and more power, more land, more riches. The gods, angered by their arrogance, sent earthquakes and floods. In just one terrible night, Atlantis disappeared beneath the sea, gone forever. Was Atlantis a real place, or just a story? That's the big question. Some people think Plato was sharing a true account, maybe a story passed down from ancient Egypt. Others believe he made it up as a warning. Way to show what happens when a society loses its way. Plato said he heard the story from his ancestor Solon, who heard it from Egyptian priests. Many experts think Plato used the story to teach a lesson about pride and the dangers of forgetting what's important. But the mystery remains. Could there be a grain of truth in the legend? Some researchers think Plato might have been inspired by real disasters. Take the island of Thera, now called Santorini. About 3,600 years ago, a massive volcano erupted there, destroying the advanced Minoan civilization. The explosion was so powerful, it sent giant waves crashing across the sea. Maybe, just maybe, stories of that disaster reached Plato and grew into the legend of Atlantis. Over the years, people have searched for Atlantis everywhere, from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, even as far as Antarctica. Divers and scientists have found strange ruins underwater, like the Yonaguni Monument in Japan and the sunken city of Dwarka in India. Some believe these could be clues to lost civilizations. But so far, no one has found proof that Atlantis was real. Even if we never find Atlantis, its story has left a huge mark on our world. During the Renaissance, artists painted beautiful pictures of the lost city. Writers dreamed up new adventures set in Atlantis. In the 1800s, Jules Verne sent Captain Nemo to explore its ruins in 20,000 leagues under the sea. Today, Atlantis pops up in movies, cartoons, and even video games. Disney's Atlantis. The Lost Empire brought the legend to a new generation, mixing adventure, magic, and mystery. Atlantis isn't just a story about a sunken city. It's a symbol, a way for us to dream about lost worlds and hidden treasures. Some people imagine Atlantis as a place of peace and wisdom, a golden age we wish we could find again. Others see it as a warning, reminding us that even the greatest civilizations can fall if they forget what matters most. Atlantis has also inspired some wild ideas. Some say the Atlanteans had flying machines and lasers, or that they were visited by aliens. Others believe Atlantis was the source of all ancient knowledge and that its survivors spread wisdom across the world. While these theories are fun to imagine, there's no real evidence for them. Still, they show just how powerful the Atlantis story is. It makes us wonder and it makes us dream. Why do we keep coming back to the story of Atlantis? Maybe it's because we all love a good mystery. Maybe it's because we hope that somewhere out there, there's still something wonderful waiting to be discovered. Or maybe deep down we know that the real magic of Atlantis isn't whether it existed or not, to s the way the story brings us together. It's inspiring us to imagine, to explore, and to wonder. Atlantis is more than a legend. It's a mirror, reflecting our hopes and fears. It asks us to imagine what might be possible and what might be lost. It warns us of the dangers of pride and the fragility of civilization, while also inspiring us to seek knowledge and adventure. Atlantis may be lost, but its legend lives in our stories, our art, and our dreams. And as long as we keep searching, the mystery of Atlantis will never truly disappear. When we hear the word Atlantis, most of us picture a lost city beneath the waves, filled with golden temples and mysterious technology. But where did this story really come from? To find out, we have to go back to the source. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato, in his two famous dialogues Timaeus and Critias. Plato lived in Athens over 2,000 years ago, a city buzzing with ideas, debates, and dreams of a better world. He was more than just a thinker. He was a storyteller, a teacher, and a seeker of truth. And it was in this world that he first shared the story of Atlantis. Plato's story of Atlantis appears in two works, Timaeus and Critias. These aren't adventure tales or history books, they're philosophical dialogues, where characters discuss the nature of the universe, society, and the soul. But in the middle of these deep conversations, Plato introduces a tale that would echo through the ages. According to Plato, the story begins with Solon, a respected Athenian lawmaker and Plato's ancestor. Solon travels to Egypt, where priests tell him of a mighty civilization that existed 9,000 years before. This was Atlantis, a powerful island nation beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Plato describes Atlantis as a land of incredible wealth and beauty. The city is built in concentric rings of land and water, with bridges, canals, and grand temples. The Atlanteans are skilled engineers, artists, and warriors. Their society is rich, organized, and for a time, just. But as the story unfolds, Plato's clues reveal more than just a lost city. He tells us about their culture, how they honored the god Poseidon, how they built their homes, and how they governed themselves. Atlantis, he says, was a place of order and harmony, at least at first. So, where was Atlantis? Plato gives us some hints. Says it was larger than Libya and Asia combined, and lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles. Some have taken this literally, searching the Atlantic Ocean for sunken islands. Others think Plato was describing a place closer to home, like the island of Santorini, which was devastated by a volcanic eruption. Plato also describes the end of Atlantis in vivid detail. The Atlanteans, once noble, become greedy and corrupt. They try to conquer the world, but the gods punish them. In a single day and night, earthquakes and floods destroy the island, and it sinks beneath the sea. For centuries, people have searched for clues, ruins, artifacts, anything that might prove Atlantis was real. But so far, the only evidence we have is Plato's words. But what if Plato wasn't describing a real place at all? Many scholars believe Atlantis was never meant to be taken literally. Instead, they say Plato used Atlantis as a symbol, a way to explore big ideas about society, power, and human nature. In Timaeus and Critias, Plato compares Atlantis to ancient Athens. Athens, in his story, is brave, wise, and just. Atlantis, on the other hand, becomes greedy and falls. It's a classic tale of good versus evil, order versus chaos. Plato may have been using Atlantis to show what happens when a society loses its way. Some experts think Plato was warning his fellow Athenians. At the time, Athens was powerful, but also facing political troubles and wars. By telling the story of Atlantis, Plato could remind his audience of the dangers of pride, corruption, and forgetting the values that make a society strong. In this view, Atlantis is less a lost city and more a mirror reflecting our hopes, fears, and the choices we make as a people. To really understand Plato's story, we need to look at the world he lived in. Athens in Plato's time was a city of thinkers, artists, and politicians. But it was also a city recovering from war and political upheaval. The great experiment of democracy was being tested, and many wondered if Athens could live up to its ideals. Plato saw both the greatness and the weaknesses of his city. He dreamed of a perfect society where wisdom and justice ruled. In his dialogues, he often used stories and myths to make his point stories that would stick in people's minds and spark their imagination. When Plato wrote about Atlantis, he was doing more than telling a tale. He was asking big questions. What makes a society strong? What causes it to fall? How can we avoid the mistakes of the past? Today, people still debate what Plato really meant. Was Atlantis a real place, lost to history? Or was it a powerful symbol meant to teach us about ourselves? Maybe it's both a story that invites us to search, not just for lost cities, but for wisdom and meaning. Plato's clues are like pieces of a puzzle. Some are clear, others are mysterious. But together, they create a story that has lasted for centuries. A story that challenges us to think, to question, and to dream. Whether Atlantis was real or not, Plato's story still speaks to us. It reminds us that the greatest mysteries aren't always about what we find, but about the questions we dare to ask. And as long as we keep searching, the legend of Atlantis and the wisdom of Plato will never be lost. Imagine searching for a city that may never have existed. For centuries, explorers, scientists, and dreamers have scoured the earth and the sea hoping to find the lost city of Atlantis. But what have they really found? And what does the evidence tell us? The search for Atlantis is a story of hope, adventure, and sometimes disappointment. Over the years, people have claimed to find Atlantis in almost every corner of the world, from the deserts of Africa to the icy waters of Antarctica. But some discoveries have captured the world's imagination more than others. Let's start in India, off the coast of the ancient city of Dwarka. According to legend, Dwarka was once the kingdom of Lord Krishna, a city so grand it was said to be built by the gods themselves. For centuries, people believed it was just a myth. But in the early 2000s, marine archaeologists made a stunning discovery. Underwater ruins, including walls, streets, and what looked like the remains of a harbor. Some were quick to call it the Indian Atlantis. The ruins were found at depths of up to 36 meters, and some artifacts dated back over 9,000 years. Could this be proof of a lost civilization? Perhaps even the inspiration for Plato's Atlantis? But science is careful. While the discoveries at Dwarka are remarkable, most experts agree that the city was likely destroyed by rising sea levels and shifting rivers, not by a single cataclysmic event. And while it's a fascinating piece of history, there's no direct link to Plato's story. Still, Dwarka reminds us that legends sometimes have roots in real places. Now, let's travel to the Mediterranean, to the island of Santorini, once known as Thera. Around 1600 BCE, Thera was home to the Minoans, one of the most advanced civilizations of the ancient world. They built beautiful cities, traded across the sea, and left behind stunning art. But then, disaster struck. A massive volcanic eruption tore the island apart, sending tsunamis across the Aegean Sea. The city of Akrotiri was buried under meters of ash, preserved like a time capsule. When archaeologists uncovered it thousands of years later, they found streets, houses, and even colorful wall paintings frozen in time. Some believe the destruction of Thera inspired Plato's tale of Atlantis. The timeline is close, and the sudden, violent end of a thriving civilization fits the story. But there are differences too. The Minoans didn't disappear overnight, and there's no evidence they tried to conquer the world. Still, the ruins of Akrotiri show us how real events can become the seeds of legend. The search for Atlantis doesn't stop there. In Spain, some researchers point to the marshes of Dona National Park, where satellite images reveal strange circular patterns. In the Bahamas, divers have found the so-called Bimini Road, a line of underwater stones that some claim is a sunken highway. And in the Atlantic, stories of lost islands and ancient maps keep the dream alive. But most of these discoveries have natural explanations. The Bimini Road, for example, is now believed to be a natural rock formation, shaped by the sea over thousands of years. The circular patterns in Spain could be ancient settlements, but there's no proof they were Atlantis. The truth is, the ocean is full of mysteries, and sometimes our eyes see what our hearts want to find. So, what does the evidence really tell us? Archaeology is a science of patience and precision. It's about digging carefully, asking questions, and testing every theory. When it comes to Atlantis, the biggest challenge is that we only have Plato's words, and no physical evidence that matches his description exactly. The ocean is vast, and much of it remains unexplored. Sunken cities do exist, like the ancient port of Heracleion in Egypt, or the ruins of Pavlopatri in Greece. But none of them fit all the details of Plato's Atlantis. And sometimes, what looks like a lost city is just a trick of nature. That doesn't mean the search is pointless. Every discovery teaches us something new about our past, but it also reminds us to be careful, to separate fact from fantasy, and to respect the evidence even when it doesn't fit our dreams. There's something about Atlantis that makes people want to believe. This obsession is sometimes called Atlantis fever. It's the thrill of the hunt, the hope of being the one to solve the world's greatest mystery. But it can also lead to trouble. Sometimes, the excitement leads people to jump to conclusions or even fake discoveries. In the rush to find Atlantis, real archaeological sites can be damaged and priceless artifacts lost forever. There are stories of looters digging up ruins, hoping to find treasure, and of scientists pressured to make sensational claims. That's why real archaeologists follow strict rules. They work slowly, record everything, and share their findings with the world. They know that history belongs to all of us, and that every artifact is a piece of our shared story. In the end, the search for Atlantis is about more than finding a lost city. It's about curiosity, imagination, and the thrill of discovery. It's about learning from the past and respecting the mysteries that remain. Maybe we'll never find Atlantis. Maybe it was never real. But the search itself has led us to incredible places and taught us to look at the world with wonder. And that, perhaps, is the greatest treasure of all, Atlantis. Even today, the name sparks our imagination. Is it just a legend, or could it be a real place, waiting to be discovered? In the modern world, the story of Atlantis has taken on new life, shaped by science, speculation, and sometimes wild imagination. Some modern thinkers believe Atlantis was more than a myth. They suggest it was a real, advanced civilization, one that rose to greatness long before the societies we know from history books. According to these theories, Atlantis was a place of incredible knowledge and technology, perhaps even more advanced than our own in some ways. But what happened to this amazing city? Here's where the theories get interesting. Some say Atlantis was destroyed by a natural disaster, a massive earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or a tsunami that wiped it off the map. Others go even further, suggesting Atlantis was destroyed by its own people, in a war so terrible it left nothing behind. A few writers and filmmakers have even imagined Atlantis as the victim of a nuclear war, thousands of years before the modern age. These ideas might sound far-fetched, but they show just how powerful the Atlantis story has become, a canvas for our biggest hopes and fears. Of course, not all theories about Atlantis are based on science. In fact, the legend has become a playground for what's called pseudoarchaeology, ideas that sound scientific, but aren't supported by real evidence. Some claim that Atlantis was the source of all ancient wisdom, that its survivors built the pyramids, or that they left clues in monuments around the world. Others say the Atlanteans had crystal energy, psychic powers, or even contact with aliens. These stories are exciting, but they're not based on facts. Why do these ideas catch on? Maybe it's because we all love a good mystery. Maybe it's because Atlantis is a blank slate. We can imagine anything we want. But there's a risk too. Pseudoarchaeology can distract us from real discoveries, and sometimes even disrespect the cultures and histories of real people. Conspiracy theories can spread fast, especially online. One day a new discovery goes viral, the next it's debunked by scientists. But the legend keeps growing, fueled by our curiosity and our love of the unknown. But the story of Atlantis isn't just about wild theories. Today, real science is giving us new ways to explore the mysteries of the past. Thanks to technology, we can see places no human has ever seen before. Underwater exploration has changed the game. With sonar, remote sensing, and underwater drones, scientists can map the ocean floor in incredible detail. They've found sunken cities, ancient harbors, and even entire landscapes lost beneath the waves. These discoveries are amazing, but so far, none have matched Plato's description of Atlantis exactly. Still, every new find teaches us more about our planet's history and reminds us how much we still have to learn. The The future of the Atlantis search is brighter than ever. New tools like satellite imaging, artificial intelligence, and DNA analysis are helping us uncover secrets that were once impossible to reach. Satellites can spot patterns on the ocean floor that might be missed by the human eye. AI can sift through mountains of data looking for clues. And by studying ancient DNA, scientists can trace the movements of people and animals across continents and oceans. These advances don't just help us look for Atlantis, they help us understand the rise and fall of real civilizations and how our world has changed over time. So why does Atlantis still matter? Maybe it's because the story is bigger than any one place. It's about the search for knowledge, the thrill of discovery, and the hope that there's always something new to learn. Atlantis is a mirror for our imagination. It lets us ask, what if? What if there was a lost civilization more advanced than we ever dreamed? What if we could learn from their mistakes, soar their wisdom? In the end, the real power of Atlantis isn't in the city itself, but in the questions it inspires. It reminds us to keep searching, to stay curious, and to never stop wondering about the world around us. From ancient scrolls to Hollywood blockbusters, from wild theories to cutting-edge science, the legend of Atlantis keeps evolving. It's a story that belongs to all of us, a mystery that will never truly be solved. Maybe one day, we'll find the truth about Atlantis. Or maybe the real treasure is the journey itself, the adventure of searching, imagining, and learning together. As our journey through the legend of Atlantis comes to a close, we find ourselves standing at the edge of the unknown, just as countless explorers, scholars, and dreamers have done for centuries. The story of Atlantis is as deep and mysterious as the ocean itself. And after all our searching, one truth remains: Atlantis is still lost. We've traveled through Plato's ancient dialogues, sifted through archaeological discoveries, and explored the wild world of modern theories. We've seen how Atlantis has inspired artists, writers, scientists, and everyday people. And yet, after more than 2,000 years, we still have no definitive proof that Atlantis ever existed. Despite all the technology at our fingertips, satellites, sonar, underwater robots, the lost city remains just out of reach. Every promising clue seems to raise more questions than answers. Some ruins turn out to be natural formations. Some artifacts belong to other well-documented civilizations. In Plato's own words, leave us wondering. Was he describing a real place, or simply using a story to teach us about human nature? The truth is, we may never know for sure. Atlantis sits at the crossroads of history and myth, fact and fantasy. It's a puzzle with missing pieces, a riddle that refuses to be solved. And maybe that's exactly why it continues to fascinate us. Atlantis is more than a lost city. It's a symbol, a mirror reflecting our hopes, fears, and dreams. For some, it's a warning about the dangers of pride and greed. For others, it's a vision of a golden age, a place where wisdom and harmony once ruled. And for many, it's simply a great mystery, a story that invites us to imagine what might be hidden just beyond the horizon. From ancient philosophers to modern filmmakers, from scientists to schoolchildren, Atlantis has inspired generations. It's a story that belongs to all of us, constantly reinvented and retold. Even without proof, its legacy is real, alive in our culture, our art, and our endless curiosity. So, where does that leave us? What should we make of Atlantis today? Maybe the real question isn't whether Atlantis existed, but why we keep searching for it. What does this legend say about us, as people and as a society? Why are we drawn to stories of lost worlds and hidden knowledge? Could there be other lost cities waiting to be found? What lessons can we learn from the rise and fall of ancient civilizations? And how can we use our curiosity not just to uncover the past, but to build a better future? Atlantis challenges us to think critically, to question what we're told, and to look beyond the surface. It reminds us that history is full of mysteries, and that sometimes the search for answers is just as important as the answers themselves. Here at The Forgotten File, we believe that every mystery is a chance to learn, to wonder, and to connect with each other. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about Atlantis? Do you believe it was a real place, or just a powerful story? Have you heard any theories or discoveries that made you stop and think? Or maybe you have your own ideas about where Atlantis might be, or what it really means. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going. Who knows? Maybe your perspective will inspire someone else or spark a new idea. After all, the search for Atlantis isn't just about finding a lost city at S, about exploring the unknown together. As we close this chapter, remember, the greatest mysteries are often the ones that can't be solved. Atlantis may remain hidden, but its story lives in our questions, our dreams, and our endless search for meaning. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the legend of Atlantis. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the forgotten file with your fellow seekers of the unknown. And most importantly, keep asking questions, because every mystery, no matter how old, is just waiting for someone curious enough to look a little deeper.